Tell my mother, ain't you got a ride? Tell my father, ain't you got a ride? All the little children, ain't you got a ride? Ain't you got a ride to the tree of life?
Look at the rich, many-colored careers of Guy and Candie Carawan, and you might think they could never quite figure out what they wanted to do. Folk music's ultimate Jack and Jill of all trades, the sort of people our parents were thinking about when they said, "Oh, if you'd only apply yourself." Over the last 5 decades, they've recorded over 20 albums and compiled or appeared on another 20 collections of traditional folk music and songs from the great social movements of our day. Guy did much to popularize the hammered dulcimer, and Candie is an accomplished potter. They've taught college and worked as folklorists, collecting songs from the Sea Islands and China, Appalachian coal mines, and angry picket lines. They've written several books that are standard texts for singers, folklorists, and political organizers. They have also remained perennially popular folk stars, appearing throughout the world at festivals, concert halls, coffee houses, and political events. That may sound like a lot of different jobs, but not to Guy and Candie. "I've always just been interested in the richness of people's culture," Guy says, whether that was songs about struggling to change things that were wrong or lullabies and love songs. Candie describes the two of them simply as cultural activists and educators. "It's the combination of doing music yourselves," she says, "and the educational role of bringing other people together and documenting the music we found. Those are the threads." Perhaps the Highlander School is the real thread. It's where they met in 1960 and where they've somehow always returned. First established as a resource center for labor organizers, in the 1950s it was turning its energies toward the budding civil rights movement. Guy was a young, freewheeling folk singer when Pete Seeger suggested he return to his native South, and, "Oh, while you're there, why don't you check out the Highlander School in Tennessee? There's a lot of singing going on there these days." Candie grew up in a progressive California home, attending a college that had an exchange program with Black University Fisk in Nashville. Wanting to get involved in the desegregation struggle, she signed up. They met at a historic Highlander training session for organizers of the Nashville sit-in movement. Guy got up to teach them some songs to sing, "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize," "I'm Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table," and an old slave spiritual turned labor song that had just been converted into a civil rights anthem, "We Shall Overcome."
We shall overcome someday.
In remembering what drew them together, Candie mentions their shared ideals and commitment to social justice, but the words tall and very handsome come up too. Asked what might have interested Guy, she laughs shyly, then recalls that he did think it was pretty great that she'd already been to jail. As Highlander's music director, no one did more than Guy to make "We Shall Overcome" the official anthem of the civil rights movement. There are few moments when we can freeze frame history and actually see the world change. One such moment came in April 1960 at Shaw University in North Carolina, the founding meeting of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, known as SNCC, which would form the front ranks of civil rights protests.
Guy started just saying, "We shall overcome." And I'm told that everybody in the room stood and joined hands and sang the song in a way it had never been sung before. And so when people who were present talk about "We Shall Overcome," they say it is that singing and that moment that "We Shall Overcome" became the theme song of the movement.
As the great movements of the 60s morphed into the many smaller but equally vital struggles of the 70s and 80s, the Carawans helped transplant the songs and techniques they'd learned into the feminist, anti-nuke, environmental, labor, and other modern movements. These days they claim to be retired, though he still plays music every day and she works at her potter's wheel. They live right next door to Highlander and can always find things to do there as it welcomes activists from all the troubled parts of our troubled world. It is clear that the couple marks the milestones of their lives, not with hit records or sold-out shows, acclaimed books or honors, though they've had all those things. It is the people they've known, striding up to Highlander, angry at injustice but full of passion and hope. Staying connected to all that, says Candie, keeps us hopeful too. So of all the things we can learn from the Carawans, perhaps nothing is more precious than the threads they see, connecting all the things they have done, the places they have been, the people they have known.
Time was 1960, the place, the USA. That February 1st became a history-making day. From Greensboro across the land, the news spread far and wide that quietly and bravely youth took a giant stride. Heed the call, American song, side by equal side. Brothers sit in dignity, sisters sit in pride, in pride, in pride, in pride, in pride. Later on, the Freedom Singers, the 4 Afro-American freedom fighters here in the South, got hold of this song. They did something to this song.
Nowadays, pundits like to ask, is folk music political? Looking at the long and lovely song of Guy and Candie Carawan, it becomes clear that you might as well ask, is life political? Is telling the truth political? Is loving people political?
High on a mountain, wind blowing free, thinking about the days that used to be. High on a mountain, I'm standing on